In 2018, I sat watching probably one of the worst E3s in recent memory, but during that whole event, 4 games caught my attention, and Ghost of Tsushima was one of them. Granted, the whole Japanese flute bollocks was cringeworthy, nearly had me turning it off, but fortunately, I persevered and was treated to something I've been wanting to experience ever since I played Assassin's Creed, an open world story set in feudal Japan. Skip forward 2 years and the game I've been pining for released to what I can only describe as synergetic ejaculation, as reviewers came together in one voice to say how amazingly perfect Ghost of Tsushima is and how it's the perfect swan song for the PS4.
It's the best game that I've played in 2020.
Something was better than Bloodborne.
This is that popping,
just popping red.
This game I've played in 2020. It's the best, most polished game. Is amazing.
As always, I like to give a mini verdict at the start of the video so that those of you who don't have enough time to watch the whole presentation yet can get an idea of whether or not to purchase this game. As it stands right now, I can honestly say Ghost of Tsushima is worth full price, but only if you enjoy open world games. Ghost of Tsushima is basically like an Ubisoft game which has had a more enthusiastic team brought in to refine and polish the edges. If you do not enjoy open world genres, you will quickly become bored of Ghost of Tsushima. It also has a number of issues which I can't believe has been glossed over by mainstream reviewers. It's like they reviewed the game with Japanese coloured specs on and they just completely forgot how to review a game and point out its issues. But have no fear, because I am here to point all those issues out, and we're now about to get into the full presentation, so sit back, relax, get a coffee and get comfortable as I am proudly presenting to you my review of Ghost of Tsushima. Enjoy.
Sacrifice everything for my home.
In the interest of full disclosure, I played Ghost of Tsushima on a standard PS4 with no HDR settings, and I have to say, Ghost of Tsushima is one of the most visually impressive games I have ever experienced in my life. The map itself is a good size for an open world game, but what is truly impressive is how every area on the map feels completely different. From the frozen wastelands of the northern prefectures, to the marshlands of the eastern prefectures, to the picturesque cherry blossom gardens of the south. Every biome is expertly crafted as a loving tribute to a truly beautiful island. I love how every area feels alive and immersive. It's very easy to get lost in the landscapes as you search for the perfect picture. If ever a game deserved a comprehensive photo mode, it's this one, and Sucker Punch Studios didn't disappoint. They knew they'd crafted a visual masterpiece and wanted to give every player the chance to show it off. The characters, wildlife and animations are top draw, however, some of the NPCs lack the detail that makes everything else so impressive, and therein lies the issue which hampers this game in every aspect. It's like 2 teams made this game, the Monday to Thursday squad, who made the majority of the game, and the Friday to Sunday group, who coasted by doing the bare minimum necessary to keep their jobs. There are examples of enemies running in circles because they're unable to step over bodies that lay at their feet. NPCs looking like they've been ripped straight out of Chinatown in GTA 5, and a horse that jumps 10 feet in the air to move 2 feet forward. If Sucker Punch had just left the midweek warriors to make this game and sacked off the weekend wankers, I truly believe these inconsistencies wouldn't plague this game. Having said all that, we can't talk about the graphics without mentioning the much debated Kurosawa mode, which turns everything monotone, adds a 35mm overlay, and mixes the sound down to a quality that sounds like you're listening to the game through coffee cans. A lot of people, including SkillUp, have said that although it's a fitting tribute, the mode hurts the game because you miss out on stunning visuals. They missed the point to this mode. Kurosawa was famed for one thing, and that was stunningly atmospheric and intense fight scenes. This mode wasn't meant to be used whilst you're roaming around the world. It's meant to be turned on just before you get into a standoff or a 1v1. It's so bloody obvious that I'm astounded that this fact was not picked up on. You have more than enough time to pause the game before you fight to switch on the mode. Hell, even the 1v1 fights don't start until you either initiate them yourself, or the game gives you a hefty monologue to give you enough time. Using the mode in its intended way gives a cool feel to the fight scenes. Although I didn't use it often, when I did, it was fun to use, although it did present its own little problem, which I'll get into later on. One aspect of this game that thankfully wasn't affected by the weekend wankers is the sound. The audio team should be commended for bringing an artistic, immersive and perfectly tuned audio symphony to complement the stunning visuals. As you are galloping through the wilderness listening to the wind blow through the trees and the endemic wildlife, all of a sudden a soft meditative tune will start playing quietly, as if the game is saying to you, "Whoa, slow down, soak it in. Your enemies will be there in 10 minutes, just take your time and enjoy." Then there are the weapon sounds, which are perfectly tuned. Everything from the swish of the katana to the heavy thunk of the shield bashes has been expertly put together to make each fight feel engaging. My only disappointment is the English-speaking voice acting. It's nowhere near as emotional or convincing as the Japanese voice acting with English subtitles. If you're the type of person who doesn't mind watching foreign films or programs with English subtitles, you know, like Narcos or something like that, then this is the way to experience the game. You will get much more out of it by doing so. Mainstream reviewers are willing to look at this game through rose-tinted glasses, and they happen to love the open world genre, then it's easy to see why they had such high praise for this game, especially the combat system. I, however, despite enjoying the open world genre and being a lover of feudal Japan, was not so easily convinced on how great this gameplay was. Yes, the midweek warriors did a fantastic job of improving on open world formula by adding little touches like not having to get off your horse to collect supplies. But as usual, the weekend wankers fucked everything up with stupid decisions like having to jump straight up in the air from a standing position just to use your grappling hook despite being stood directly under the hooking point and looking at it. I mean, how stupid do you have to be? I'm just gonna stand here, look at the grappling point and then hop, because then I can throw it. I can't throw it while I'm stood here, I have to hop to do it. I mean, for God's sake, man. I tell you what, allow me to backtrack and start with the crux of this game, which is the open world genre in itself. In games like these, you get a map of varying size with waypoints, side quests and areas to level up your character. Ghost of Tsushima is no different in that respect. What is different is the fact there is no level gating. In 99% of other games like Assassin's Creed, areas are sectioned off by making them increasingly hard and stacking them with enemies way above your level, so there is no way you can enter that area unless you're at the right level. This makes sure you can't enter them unless you have progressed your character enough to be able to deal with the damage. By doing this, you are invariably forced to do shitty side quests to gather enough experience to level up your character. Ghost of Tsushima, however, sticks 2 fingers up to that tired old way of padding out games and allows you to roam the whole map at your pleasure. Yes, there are ways to level up your character, but that involves learning new skills to defeat the Mongol invasion. Better yet, the character leveling system is actually built into the story itself, as the Mongols have learned the way of the samurai and know how to combat the tactics, forcing you to learn the way of the ghost. Or as most people understand it, the way of the ninja or shinobi, as its actual name is known as. In this game, there are 2 types of side quests you can find as you roam Tsushima. There are the ones where a standard NPC needs help getting their stuff back, or a village needs freeing, etc. Basically the standard affair for this genre. Then there are the side quests you get from the various allies you meet along your journey. These quests are very different from the norm, as they have their own little story to them and consist of 6 to 9 parts spread across the 3 main acts. I really enjoyed this way of storytelling because not only do you have the main admittedly cliche story, you also have 6 other stories which range in complexity and emotional immersion. On top of this, you also have the armor quests, which vary from fighting 6 opponents placed in different areas to treasure hunting with some puzzle solving thrown in. Then there's the combat itself, which has also suffered from the vile infection also known as the Weekend Wankers. Don't get me wrong, for the most part the combat is fantastic, as it takes inspiration from the Star Wars fighting system, where mastering dodging and parrying is the key to success. But that leads me to where I can see the Weekend Wankers were asked to just touch up and polish this part. During combat, to parry, you have to press L1 at the right moment. Performing a successful parry opens up the enemy to either a critical hit or a kill shot. You can easily spot your chances, as there is a blue light telling you a parry chance is on its way. The problem is, especially when facing lancers or in 1v1s against a sword stance, the system doesn't always recognise when you press L1, allowing the enemy to get a critical shot on you. In most cases, this can leave you almost dead, because the enemy almost always follows up instantly with second and sometimes even third hits. This was incredibly frustrating and had the ability to completely ruin the combat experience. I know there'll be those of you who'll say, "Oh, you wasn't quick enough to press it," and yes, I get that I'm getting on in my years, but you have at least a 1.5 second warning, which is more than enough time for even myself to get ready to parry on time. And whilst we're on this subject, I can now explain how this light system they've used to emphasise parry and dodging conflicts heavily with the Kurosawa mode. Bear in mind, the lights shine in the exact same place regardless of blue or red, red being for dodging. But if the game is in monochrome, you can't bloody tell what's coming, leaving you with only one option: to dodge. This cuts down your attacking prowess quite considerably, as in the 1v1s you rely heavily on those openings created by the perfect parry to deal the most damage and break your opponent's shield. These types of idiosyncrasies are prevalent throughout the whole gameplay. 90% of the gameplay is spot on, but it's that 10% which reeks of the Weekend Wankers that frustrates the shit out of me and stops Ghost of Tsushima from setting a new benchmark within this genre. Yes, the minimalistic UI and the guiding wind are amazing touches which allow you to immerse yourself into this game, but as soon as you see an enemy walking round in circles as it tries to figure out the route around dead bodies rather than simply stepping over them, rips you straight out of that immersion. Thankfully though, those occasions are few and far between, as the majority of this game has been put together by a team who loves gaming and loves this IP. Name me one person who hasn't fantasized about being a badass samurai who has no equal. Ghost of Tsushima allows you to live out that fantasy in an immersive way whilst giving a somewhat authentic feel to the time period and an art style that mimics the vibrancy of the samurai comic books. The combat, in spite of its occasional flaws, is incredibly fun and has the ability to make you feel like an expertly skilled warrior akin to today's superheroes. There are lots of engaging content here, which on normal mode can last a good 65 hours, assuming you plan on completing all the major content. You can even stretch that out to a good 80 plus hours if you play on hard mode, which I found a challenge, but was able to handle. Overall, Ghost of Tsushima is a quality game worthy of its full price tag. The visuals, sound and gameplay, even on the standard PS4, takes full advantage of the hardware. Yes, it has its flaws, and yes, if it was up to me, I would have the weekend wankers flogged and dipped in vinegar, but the game as a whole is fantastic and easily a Game of the Year contender. A true and honest verdict, if you believe in the scoring system, is a good 8 out of 10. It's not perfect, but no game is, and there are enough flaws to drop it down from that 9 spot, which you would expect to see on games like God of War. And with that being said, that concludes my review of Ghost of Tsushima. If you've enjoyed this video, please show your support of my content by leaving a like on this video, and if you haven't already, subscribing to my channel. Until next time, that's all from me, Mr. B. Ta-ta for now.